The sound of glass shattering rang across the school laboratory like a gunshot, jerking everyone's heads toward the back of the room. Beakers clattered to the floor, chemicals hissed on the tiles, and in the middle of the chaos stood a hulking teenager with a sneer carved across his face. His hand was clamped around his teacher's throat. The students froze. Some gasped, others whispered, but nobody moved. The boy towering over the teacher was Eric Dawson, the biggest, most feared bully in the entire school. For years, he had controlled the hallways like a warlord, his fists and intimidation silencing anyone who dared cross him. But now, in the quiet tension of that science lab, Eric had crossed a line no one imagined he ever would. He had laid hands on Ms. Laura Bennett. To most students, Ms. Bennett was just their chemistry teacher, quiet, disciplined, and firm, yet not the type to command fear. She wore her auburn hair in a neat bun, her glasses perched on her nose, her voice calm even when correcting the rowdiest of kids. No one knew much about her past, except that she was new to the school and preferred to keep to herself. She lived alone, drove an old pickup, and avoided the teacher's lounge gossip. The students had pegged her as a bookish, soft-spoken woman who wouldn't hurt a fly. Eric thought so too until he grabbed her throat. But in that moment, something shifted in Ms. Bennett's eyes. The calm hazel softened into steel, and her posture, though trapped under his grip, changed. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't choking in fear. She was measuring him, calculating, as though she had been in far worse situations before. And she had. What Eric didn't know was that before becoming a teacher, Laura Bennett had served 15 years in the U.S. Army, including tours in Afghanistan. She had led combat medics through fire-swept valleys, dragged wounded soldiers under enemy fire, and faced men twice Eric's size with only seconds to react. To her, this was not the first time she had been choked by someone larger, stronger, or crueler. Her military past was a secret she had carried quietly, a life she thought she had left behind. But now, with Eric's hand tightening around her throat in front of 30 horrified students, Laura knew that part of herself was about to surface again. She moved. With startling speed, she twisted her shoulder, dropped her weight, and snapped Eric's wrist away from her throat in a fluid motion. Before he could recover, she had shifted her stance, leveraging his bulk against himself, and pinned him face-first onto the lab table. His arm bent painfully behind his back, his breath escaping in a grunt. Gasps filled the room. Some students clapped a hand over their mouths. Others muttered "whoa" under their breath. Eric, the untouchable king of bullies, was suddenly immobilized by a woman half his size. "Let me go," he spat, thrashing. But Ms. Bennett's grip was unbreakable, honed by years of combat training. Her voice, when it came, was calm but thunderous. "Sit down." The authority in her tone wasn't that of a schoolteacher. It was the voice of a soldier, one who had commanded men under fire, one who expected to be obeyed without question. For the first time in his life, Eric Dawson didn't just hear authority, he felt it. She released him, and he staggered back, red-faced, humiliated. The room was silent, the students wide-eyed, the balance of power in the school permanently shifting in a single instant. But that was only the beginning. News spread like wildfire. By lunchtime, every student in school had heard what happened in the lab. Ms. Bennett flipped Eric, they whispered in hallways. "She's like, military or something." Eric's pride was shattered. For years, he had thrived on fear, on the silence of students too scared to speak, on teachers too intimidated to discipline him. Now, his reign had ended with one swift, controlled move from a woman everyone had underestimated. But humiliation breeds vengeance. And Eric wasn't done. That week, he prowled the halls, his eyes burning with anger every time Ms. Bennett passed. He hurled insults under his breath, threatened students who praised her, and even spread rumors about her cheating with military-style moves. But the more he tried, the weaker his influence became. Students who once cowered before him now stood taller, emboldened by the sight of someone who had shown that Eric wasn't untouchable. One afternoon, Eric confronted Ms. Bennett again, this time in the parking lot after school. His fists were clenched, his voice dripping with venom. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone," he growled. "You think you're tough? This isn't over." Laura didn't flinch. Instead, she looked him square in the eye. "Eric," she said softly, "you've been bullying these kids for years. But your war ends today. You can keep fighting me, or you can face the truth that you're scared, and you don't know how to be anything else." Her words hit him harder than any punch. The school administration soon learned the full story. Several students had recorded the lab incident on their phones, and within hours, the video went viral in the local community. Parents demanded action. The principal, though initially shocked, stood by Ms. Bennett when the truth came out about Eric's aggression. Eric's career as a feared bully ended forever. His football coach dropped him from the team, colleges rescinded their offers, and his father, a man used to pulling strings to protect his son, could do nothing against the tide of public outrage. But Laura didn't celebrate. Instead, she visited Eric at home weeks later, after the dust had settled. His mother answered the door with tired eyes, and Eric himself stood in the background, no longer the swaggering giant, but a boy stripped of his power. "I didn't come to punish you," Laura told him. "I came because I know what anger does if you let it consume you. I've seen soldiers lose themselves to it. You have a choice now, to be more than the bully you've been, or to let this define you forever." It was the first time anyone had spoken to Eric like that, not as a monster, not as a lost cause, but as a boy who could still change. Months passed, and though Eric's reputation never recovered, he slowly began to rebuild. He took counseling sessions, joined community service projects, and for the first time in years, apologized sincerely to the students he had hurt. It didn't erase the past, but it was a start. As for Laura Bennett, she became more than a teacher. She became a symbol. Students who once hid in fear now found courage. Teachers who once overlooked bullying now took a stand. The story of the day Ms. Bennett's military past ended a bully's reign became legend in the school. But to Laura, the real victory wasn't in defeating Eric. It was in teaching her students, and even him, that true strength isn't in fists or fear, but in courage, discipline, and compassion. And now, dear viewers, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done if you were in that lab? Do you believe people like Eric can truly change? Share your opinions in the comments, I read every one of them. And if you found this story powerful, inspiring, or eye-opening, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story from Be Kind Always. Together, we can spread kindness, courage, and hope, one story at a time.